It began with a flicker, just a faint tremor of light, a subtle anomaly rippling across the sensors of the SOHO spacecraft. At first, no one gave it a second thought. After all, the cosmos is filled with noise. Random bursts of radiation, glimmers of debris reflecting the sun, flickers of light that vanish as quickly as they appear. Astronomers have learned to ignore these distractions, chalking them up to the background chaos of the universe. But this time was different. The anomaly didn't fade. It grew. And before the world's greatest observatories even had the chance to react, the discovery came not from billion-dollar instruments orbiting Earth, but from a small backyard telescope in Australia. Amateur comet tracker Michael Mattiazzo was the first to capture the image that would stun NASA itself. What he saw was staggering. A colossal object with a blazing tail so vast, so luminous, that it stretched across the sky with a width greater than 5 full moons placed side by side. It wasn't a distant blur. It was unmistakable, dominating the heavens in a way no comet in recorded history ever had. At first, astronomers assumed it was just another icy visitor from the outer reaches of the solar system. But within hours, it became clear, this wasn't just another comet. It was bigger, brighter, stranger, and far more terrifying. Almost overnight, the world's attention shifted. The mysterious interstellar object 3I, Atlas, once the focus of speculation, was suddenly eclipsed by something even more enigmatic. A new contender had entered the arena, and it wasn't just larger than Atlas, it dwarfed it. The object was given an official name by the International Astronomical Union, c. 2025 R2 Swan. But almost immediately, scientists realized that a name would do little to help them understand what they were dealing with. Because Swan R2 was breaking all the rules. Unlike comets, which tumble erratically as they approach the sun, Swan R2 moved with surgical precision. Its brightness didn't fluctuate wildly. Its path didn't jitter with jets of sublimating ice. Instead, it glowed steadily, emitting rhythmic pulses of energy that looked less like natural outgassing and more like communication. Most disturbing of all, those pulses followed a pattern. A schedule. When the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity's most advanced eye on the cosmos, turned its gaze toward Swan R2, what it revealed sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Swan R2 wasn't a chunk of ice and dust. It wasn't an asteroid. It wasn't a random piece of interstellar debris. It was something else entirely. Swan R2 was a machine. The first detection of Swan R2 came on September 12, 2025. Instruments aboard the SOHO spacecraft tracked its steady approach. But just 2 days later, things escalated dramatically. Mattiazzo's images showed that the tail stretched more than 2.5 degrees across the sky, the equivalent of 5 full moons side by side. No natural comet in modern history had ever produced such a structure. The scientific community was stunned. Within hours, the International Astronomical Union convened to classify the object, but classification wasn't the problem. The problem was understanding what they were seeing. Swan R2 didn't look or act like a natural body. Compared to 3I, Atlas, the differences were profound. Atlas had shown thrust-like emissions, perhaps from unusual outgassing. But Swan R2's emissions were different. It had what appeared to be a plasma shield, an artificial barrier bending the solar wind itself. And then came the orbit. Swan R2 wasn't just passing through. It was on a return journey. Its orbital period was calculated to be 22,554 years, longer than all of recorded human history. The last time this object passed near the Sun, Earth was locked in an ice age and humanity was carving its earliest monuments. That realization chilled astronomers to the core. Objects don't just follow orbital periods like that by chance. Not unless they are programmed. When James Webb focused its powerful spectroscopic instruments on Swan R2, the truth became undeniable. The object's spectral signature revealed something never before seen in nature, a metallic alloy of nickel and cobalt. Ultra-dense. Ultra-refined. The kind of material one might find not in geology, but in engineering blueprints for starships. Its so-called tail wasn't water vapor. It wasn't dust. It was exhaust. Controlled bursts of plasma, precisely timed, chemically tuned, and emitted in a way that screamed of intentional design. The colors shifted from deep red to searing white-green during acceleration, exactly the kind of signature you'd expect from a plasma drive adjusting its burn. This wasn't a comet. This was propulsion. And the power source behind it was beyond comprehension. Measurements indicated an energy output of over 10,000 gigawatts per second. To put that in perspective, that's the equivalent of 2 colliding black holes contained within a single core. Human technology doesn't come close. In fact, nothing in nature comes close. But perhaps the most unsettling discovery was its trajectory. Swan R2 wasn't heading anywhere random. Its path was carefully calculated to converge with 3I, Atlas, within just weeks, in October 2025. Two massive interstellar objects, from opposite directions of the galaxy, arriving behind the Sun at nearly the same time. On a cosmic scale, the odds of this happening by coincidence are essentially zero. This wasn't random. This was choreography. Some experts theorized Swan R2 was an interceptor, sent to rendezvous with Atlas, to capture it, or even to destroy it. Others believed both were part of a larger system, a network of machines sent to monitor solar systems across the galaxy. If that was true, then our Sun wasn't just a star in their path. It was a focal point. A gate. And their timing might not have been coincidental at all. Perhaps they were responding to us. Our signals. Our technology. Our very presence. And then came a revelation from humanity's own past. Archaeologists and researchers like Graham Hancock pointed out that the last time Swan R2 would have passed near Earth, roughly 22,000 years ago, was the very period when ancient civilizations began erecting their first great monuments. Megalithic sites, star maps, pyramids aligned to Orion, Aquarius, and the ecliptic path of the Sun. Could those ancient builders have witnessed Swan R2 in the sky? Were their monuments not just temples but records? Warnings of a cycle far older than recorded history? If so, then myths may not be myths at all. They may be memories. But just as the world's fascination reached its peak, something strange happened. NASA quietly pulled down spectral data from its servers. The European Space Agency released a vague press statement calling Swan R2 unusual but explainable. China announced that its instruments were undergoing maintenance. Behind the scenes, intelligence agencies circulated a memo warning of technological signatures inconsistent with natural origin. The memo mentioned propulsive anomalies, symmetrical structure beneath the coma, and variable emissions consistent with intentional maneuvering. In short, Swan R2 wasn't natural. And someone was trying to control the narrative. Even stranger was what NASA did next. Without explanation, they reoriented Voyager 1's high-gain antenna, pointing it directly towards Swan R2's projected path. Why? What were they hoping to hear? Around the same time, SETI and radio telescopes in Chile and South Korea began detecting a faint low-frequency signal coming from Swan R2's plasma tail. At first, it was dismissed as background noise. But when researchers applied pattern analysis, the truth became impossible to ignore. The pulses weren't random. They were mathematical. They followed the Fibonacci sequence, a universal code found in seashells, galaxies, hurricanes, and DNA itself. A sequence deeply woven into the fabric of nature, and perhaps into communication itself. This wasn't static. It was a message. And worse, the intervals between bursts were shrinking. A countdown had begun. When the 8th burst hit, labeled "burst 8 inches by SETI," the signal spiked with power equivalent to a solar flare. But it wasn't from the sun. It was from Swan R2 itself. Something out there wasn't just broadcasting. It was preparing.